Welcome back to NewsX World. I'm Asuma Katauka and you are watching Focal Length, where we get you a briefing on topics from across the world. As conflict with Israel intensifies and diplomacy stalls, Iran shifts to a confrontational posture, framing missiles as its new language. Tehran strengthens regional alliances, including with Saudi Arabia, while nuclear talks remain frozen and global pressure mounts over its strategic intentions. Joining us now is Dr. Hamidreza Gholamzadeh, Director of the House of Diplomacy and a prominent Iranian political analyst, former editor-in-chief of Mehr News Agency. He has held senior roles in Tehran's municipal affairs and serves as Secretary General of the Asian Mayors Forum. Dr. Gholamzadeh offers critical insight into Iran's foreign policy, media strategy, and regional diplomacy. Today, he discusses with us Iran's approach to the Israel conflict, regional alliances, missile diplomacy, and the future of U.S.-Iran nuclear talks. We're delighted to have you with us today for what promises to be an insightful conversation. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Hamidreza Gholamzadeh. My first question to you is, Dr. Gholamzadeh, you have said that the time for negotiations is over and that missiles are now the language of talks. Do you believe Iran is prepared for a prolonged confrontation with Israel? And what would Tehran consider a red line that justifies escalation?
Thank you very much for having me. The imminent war between Iran and Israel or the Americans was something that many analysts were talking about it for the past year, let's say, especially after the Israelis attacked the Iranian consulate section in Syrian capital Damascus, which was in April 2024. And after that, the tension escalated between the two sides. Iran launched missile attacks against Israel, and then they assassinated Ismail Haniyeh inside Iran, and then this ping pong actually continued in one way or the other. And the procedure was like that: the two sides are getting up the ladder of escalation of tension, and then many analysts discussed that it would lead to some conflict between two sides, and we actually walked it. So up to that moment, it was possible to talk about negotiations and discussions, as Iran was doing it actually. Iran was in the middle of negotiations with the Americans, where the Americans used the negotiations as a means of deceiving Iran into political procedures so that the Israelis can attack Iran. And that's what President Trump has admitted to do so. And as you remember, Iran was attacked on Friday, 2 days after which it was supposed to have meetings with American Representative Mr. Whitcomb. So negotiation was something that the Americans killed. But in terms of preparation, since this conflict has been into the air for many years and many months, Iran has always thought about it. Iran was surprised, we cannot deny that, in the attack that was carried out. And its military commanders and scientists were killed by the Israelis. But the general feeling and the general atmosphere that there might be a war, has always been into the air. And Iran had tried to prepare itself for such a conflict. And for preparation of that, it means that Iran needs to prepare at least for 2 years of war. And that's what Iran has already done. So Iran has experienced 8 years of Saddam's war against its territories. And Iran continued. It was immediately after the Iranian Revolution in 1979. The war erupted in 1980. And it was actually very new for a country that has gone through a big revolution. But it could fight back, and it could defend its territories for 8 years and did not stop its defense. After that, Iran decided that in this volatile region, it needs power, and it needs defensive power as the first vital actually option for revival in this region. So it decided to revive, and it has planned for such a conflict that would be imposed on that for at least 2 years. Iran has said that if such thing happens, I need to defend myself for at least 2 years, because such a conflict could be very long and time-consuming conflict, because it might get Americans involved, Europeans involved, other players involved, other players in the region could be involved. So Iran has prepared for at least different scenarios that could erupt. Last time, when the war erupted, the Israelis attacked Iran, and they had the miscalculation that it would lead to collapse of the Islamic Republic, and the people would rise against their government. They failed to do so, and the Israelis failed actually to collapse the Iranian government. And after the Iranian defense and the missile attacks that were carried out, now we can easily say by the different reports that the Israelis were under very strong pressure and they could not defend themselves for more than a few days. And if the war had prolonged for more days, the Israelis would have been defeated. It is very likely to have happened. So they decided to stop that. So Iran says that and believes that it needs to have different scenarios, short-term, mid-term, and long-term conflicts, and it has already prepared itself for such conflicts.
And also, building on your answer, digging deeper into that, you have stated that Israeli strikes have rather united Iranians than caused unrest. So how resilient do you think this unity will be if the economic costs of war deepen within Iran?
You know, throughout history, Iranians have witnessed that how the country has been divided into smaller, and some parts of it has been touched. I mean, centuries ago and many long decades ago, before the Islamic Revolution. And the only war that Iran managed to keep its territory was the after the revolution, the 8 years war that Iran had after the revolution, and it controlled and maintained its territory. It didn't give even an inch of land to the Saddam's regime in Iraq. And now it defended itself, of course, during this 12-day war. So Iranians have experienced that history, and they have a very good memory of those histories. They have lost countries, places that now you can consider as countries, like Azerbaijan, like Armenia, like Afghanistan, like Tajikistan, like Kazakhstan, like Turkmenistan. All of them have been part of Iran, and they have lost them. Bahrain has been part of Iran. They have lost. So Iranians are very sad about those losses, and they don't want to have such a thing happen again. And they understand with not only the memory of the history that they have, but also the reality on the ground in the region, just like Libya, just like Syria right now. They are seeing that how these countries are actually detached and destroyed, we can say, and they don't want such a thing happen to their country. Iran has been stable for centuries and thousands of years, and they want to have their country as it is. They don't want to lose any other parts of that, and they have very smartly realized that these attacks are against the integrity of Iran, and they don't want their country disintegrated. So they would pay all the costs that it needs. They have experienced much worse economic situation during the 8 years of war. As I said, it was immediately after, less than a year after a little more than a year after the Islamic Revolution. And the country was not stable at that time, and the economy was not good at that time, and people managed to leave out the war. So compared to that situation, we are far, far away from such conflicts and such a bad economy right now. Now people are talking about their welfare, not about the basic needs. They're not talking about the infrastructure. They're not talking about uh, the livability of the people. They are talking about and demanding about their welfare. They have the right to do so, of course, but they know that the welfare is not something that you can sell your country for. They know that the welfare is not something you can give up with your country, with your integrity, with your independence. So whatever the cost is, Iranians are going to defend their country to the end.
And Dr. Iran is often portrayed internationally as isolated. As director of the House of Diplomacy, how do you counter that narrative? Is Tehran's message cutting through in the global media space now?
You know, Iran has been independent, not isolated. Iran has been independent. That was something that he decided when the revolution happened in 1979. We were living in a bipolar world, that the Eastern and Western blocs were actually in place, and Iran wisely said that they had the motto: neither West nor East, the Islamic Republic. It was the motto of the revolution and the country at that time. To say that I'm not going to abide by the liberal mindset, I'm not going to abide by the communism, I'm actually offering a new form of rulership, a new form of governance, and a new school of thought. And that is the Islamic Republic. So Iran has been independent in its school of thought and its governance and its foreign policy. It doesn't mean that it has been isolated. There have been a lot of pressure on that, but many countries, and especially many nations, I would like to divide between the nations and the states in some cases. Many nations are actually supporting Iran, especially for the past 2 years. Many people around the world have realized that why Iran has been supportive of the Palestinians and has been against the Zionist regime in the occupied land of Palestine, because they are tyrants, because they are an apartheid regime, and because they are child killers. And many nations are supporting that. Iran is not isolated, but the Western mainstream media are trying to portray Iran as isolated because they don't want other countries to take Iran as a role model and to think of independence and to be independent in their own rights, in their own interests. Because the Westerners, especially, want to benefit from other countries. They want to impose their wills against those countries. So no, Iran is not isolated. Iran is independent, and Iran tries to be totally independent in all its areas. It doesn't mean that Iran is not cooperative with other countries, but Iran says that my cooperation with other countries should not translate into giving up my independence. It doesn't translate into surrender to other foreign policies. Yes, in foreign policy, you might give and take. It's natural. It is very reasonable. But to the extent that your international interests are not affected by that. And Iran is very careful about such a thing. Iran has been cooperating with Russia, with China, with other countries in the region, with Saudi Arabia, with Turkey, and even with the United States. We have the background of working with the United States in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And it was immediately after that the George Bush called Iran, George Bush the son, called Iran the axis of evil. It was immediately after Iran helped the Americans get out of the quagmire that they were facing in Afghanistan. Even in those cases, Iran did not stop cooperation with other countries, but it was all based on the national interest of the Islamic Republic of Iran and its people. So they don't want such an independence in other countries. Look at Iraq. They attacked Iraq in the name of bringing democracy to the country. They killed many people and called it pangs of birth, as Hamidreza Rice called it once. So, but now the Iraqi money is in the American banks and they decide for the Iraqi assets and wealth how to be used. And Iraqi government doesn't have access to its money. And the people of Iraq don't have access to their money. Look at Lebanon. Americans dictate to the Lebanese government what to do and what not to do. They decide for the land of Ukraine to give up the land. They are deciding for everyone. And that's exactly what Iran is against that. Iran is not going to give up its independence and is supportive of any country who wants its independence. So, no, it's not isolation, it's actually a new way of foreign policy and governance.
Thank you, Dr. Hamidreza Gholamzadeh, for speaking to us and sharing that insight on Focal Length. It's been a pleasure having you with us. Thank you again for your valuable input.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for taking time to join us. With that, it's a wrap on this episode of The Focal Length. For more international news and updates, stay tuned on NewsX World.